The rule is the top line of the driver should be halfway between the equator and the South Pole of the golf ball. And almost everybody who comes to me who's a mid to high handicap tees it way higher than that. They have it at the South Pole or even below the South Pole, which is way, way too high. If you have the top line of your driver at the equator, you're not going to hit the ball as far as you're capable of. It's going to launch too low and probably have too much spin. So you'll lose ground roll as well.
Brought to you by Dynamic Golfers. This is Golf Smarter number 838. Getting back to basics of the little things that we tend to forget from round to round with Jim Waldron.
This is Golf Smarter. Sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Jimmy.
Thank you, Fred. I always love being on this show with you. We always have fun together.
We really do. I mean, we have these conversations before we start recording about, how about we discuss this? How about we discuss... It's like, we don't have to do that. We could just get the conversation started and it'll flow and we'll have fun and I'll learn a lot and we'll be able to share a lot of information that is incredibly helpful to most golfers. So let's do that. But first... Let's start where you are these days, where you're teaching right now as we're right in the beginning of April.
Yeah, I'm home in Oregon. I didn't travel this year to Hawaii or Palm Springs or Mexico. Some of that's COVID, some other stuff going on, just personal stuff. So I decided not to go to my usual places to teach in warm weather during the cold winters here. So I've been another COVID winter back at home, and we had one day in mid-December, it was 26 below zero here.
In Oregon?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
People think of Oregon as Portland and the Willamette Valley, which is obviously more like Bay Area, temperate climate. But the eastern two-thirds of the state is either a high plateau, like high desert, like 3,000 feet, or mountains. And I'm up in the mountains.
I see.
My house is at 4,000 feet, and the mountains are 10,000.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we get severe winter weather. Not like we used to because of global warming, but we used to be. I mean, we had it with wind chill in 1985. With the wind chill, it was 80 below zero Fahrenheit. 80
below zero.
Yeah, it was. I think it was 42 below air temperature, and then because it happened to be super windy, it came out to be 80 below with the wind chill. Yeah.
So is the weather out on the coast like at Bandon Dunes, how far are you from Bandon?
If I got in my car and drove there and didn't stop, it would take me 9 hours to get there.
Oh, really?
Oregon's a big state, yeah.
Because
we're at opposite. I'm at northeastern corner of the rectangle of Oregon, and Bandon's the southwestern corner.
Yeah, because I think it would take me about 9 hours to drive here from Northern California.
It would from Marin there, yeah, it would. About the same time.
Yeah, I'm hoping to go next year to Bandon. My friends have a trip scheduled, and I may not be able to make it, which is very frustrating because of conflicts already we know about next June 2023.
Wow. Well, you'll love it. It's awesome. So what do you think? Should we continue our last podcast from a few months ago about what average golfers who don't have yips can learn from people who do have yips that I've worked with and cured, so that their overall mental game can be much, much better?
Yeah, I do want to talk about that because everyone seems to know what the yips are. But before we go there, there's something else I've been meaning to ask, and you're actually a good person for me to ask this question, because there's a debate raging with my foursome that I'm just curious to get a professional's viewpoint on this. And that is the tee position. When you're hitting driver off the tee, and you put your tee in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I have these tees. I lean the tee a little bit back towards my right hand, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have a friend who has one of those martini tees. Yeah. And he leans it forward. And I see him hitting a lot of low line shots, and I don't think he recognizes that, but he hits a lot of low line shots, and I think that's because he's coming up with his driver and hitting on the ball because it's leaning forward.
Yeah, he's getting less backspin with that method. It would be similar just teeing the ball up lower. It has the same effect pretty much.
Of just teeing it up lower. Okay.
Yeah. And that's not the margin of positivity to doing that is so tiny, it's almost borders on superstition. Yeah. Which, again, or in other words, you could say the placebo effect. If any golfer, 99 out of 100 golfers, if they tried that and they hit 5 better drives than they normally do in a row, they would form the belief that that was somehow a magical tee position that improved their. There's a lot of placebo effect type of thinking in the golf world.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did a lesson with a new student yesterday. Well, I didn't do it yet, but he sent me his videos prior to the lesson. Mm-hmm. And he was on a mat at home, and he had one of those rubber tees.
Yep.
And he was soling the driver behind the tee. So the bottom of the driver was either touching or almost touching the mat. And the bottom of the ball was probably, the south pole of the golf ball was probably had to be an inch and a half above the top of his driver.
Oh, wow.
Which is like completely out of position. And I see students all the time that don't know what the proper tee height is. And there's a rule for that.
Well, I think this is a phenomenal topic because most people probably don't tee it up properly.
They don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on whether you're a hoverer or a solar. That'd be a good title for like a podcast, but it'd only be like a 2-minute podcast. So hoverers, which are less than 5% of good golfers, although I think I'm a hoverer, I think it should be higher, but hoverers, the way Tiger does it, or the way DeChambeau does it, they position the center of the driver club face in the vertical dimension exactly in line with the equator of the golf ball before they start their takeaway, which is kind of what you do with every other shot when the ball's on the ground. You're positioning the face in the vertical dimension, like right behind the ball, right? Mm-hmm. But the other way of doing it with the driver is to sole it, where you have the bottom of the club lightly touching the top of the grass, although you should never let the weight of the club ever rest on the ground. You should always hold the weight of the club up in your hands, right?
Wait, so stop. What? What? When I tee off, I'm sitting there, my driver is sitting right on the ground.
Oh, that's a huge mistake.
Oh, my gosh.
Then to get it started, so that was to not snag the bottom of the club on the grass, you have to tighten your grip pressure and or bend your elbows in and up or pull your arms in at the shoulder sockets to get the club a little higher off the ground. And one of the big rules in the physical side of the game is ideally it's better. It's important not to ever change your grip pressure. So good. By the way, good players don't do that. I mean, I work with people all the time, different handicap ranges, and most of the guys and gals who are about 12 or higher do what you do. And I never see anybody who's around 11 or lower who does that. Now, you have to hold the weight of the entire club up in your finger pressure, which means you have to hover the sole of the club above the grass. It's touching the grass, right? I mean, you're depressing the top of the grass, the top eighth of an inch or so is being compressed by the club, but you're still holding the weight of the club up in your fingers. That's really important.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It'll make a difference right away. Yeah.
And oh my goodness, this is amazing. I'm so glad I asked. So, and whether the tee is leaning one direction or straight up or forward, backward, doesn't make any difference.
Doesn't really matter. It's mostly superstition. Doesn't really have it has a small impact, but very little.
Okay.
What I do is if I have wind behind me, I put the ball about a ball width further forward in my stance, and I raise the tee height by about 3/8 of an inch or so, because I want to have more of an upward blow, so I get the wind to carry it further. Mm-hmm. And if I'm hitting into a wind, I put the ball back a ball width in my stance toward my right foot, and I lower the tee height by about 3/8 of an inch. And that'll obviously launch lower. The first example will launch higher than normal. The second example will launch lower. But if it's not much of a wind in either direction, I just do normal tee height. So since I'm a hoverer, I have the ball teed up much lower than the way you would do it, since you're going to be more of a solar. So if you look at Tiger's tee height with a driver, it looks really low. Yeah. Or DeChambeau. But that's because they're hovering it. And again, even most tour pros don't hover. Most tour pros are solars. But when they're soling it, yeah, the bottom of their driver is touching the top of the grass, but it's not resting on the ground. So if you're a solar, you have to, the rule is the top line of the driver, if you're a solar, when you're soling it, but again, not letting it rest on the ground, the top line of the driver should be halfway between the equator and the South Pole of the golf ball. And almost everybody who comes to me who's a mid to high handicap tees it way higher than that. They have it at the South Pole or even below the South Pole, which is way, way too high.
Okay, and I'm going to need you to give me a full explanation. So I've always thought that the equator of the ball should be level with the top of the driver.
That's only if you're trying to hit a lower than normal trajectory driver. See, here's what it's based on. The research shows pretty convincingly, because of TrackMan, launch monitors and spin monitors, that the ideal launch angle for everybody, doesn't matter if you're a tour pro or beginner, is if the angle that the ball leaves the face and starts to angle up toward the sky is between 12 and 14 degrees, along with about 2,500 RPMs of backspin, that will give you the most carry distance and the most rollout distance combined. You get a moderate amount of rollout and a nice amount of carry distance. So kind of like a medium high shot. If you go high, it's going to go more up than forward. And if you go low, it's not going to carry as much, but it might roll out more. So you want a reason, like in the summer, you should be able, if you're on a dry fairway in the summer, but an actual fairway that's water, not like brown grass, not like concrete. But if you're in a normal fairway environment in the summer with no wind, you should get with a driver between 20 and 30 yards of rollout. Yeah, which means that medium high trajectory gives you that big first bounce forward, kind of makes the ball roll out. So the combination of the two, the 12 to 14 degree launch and around 2,500 RPMs of spin, will give you the maximum distance both in the air and on the ground. And a lot of that comes down to tee height and making sure the tee height is correct. And if you have the top line of your driver at the equator, you're not going to hit the ball as far as you're capable of. It's going to launch too low and probably have too much spin. So you'll lose ground roll as well, right?
This is awesome. All right, listen, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. I have more questions about teeing it up, and we'll be back right after this. This episode of Golf Smarter is brought to you by Dynamic Golfers. If you're looking for greater distance, more consistency, and less pain after each round, maybe you should stop looking in your bag and focus on your body. Think about how logical it is that you could do so much better for each round of golf when you focus on the most important tool in your golf game and beyond. With the ongoing regimen of workouts from Dynamic Golfers, you'll increase your mobility and flexibility so that you can increase your distance off the tee, get a more consistent swing for tighter approach shots, and even be more comfortable when reaching down to retrieve the ball in the cup after an impressive one-putt. Each workout session is only 15 to 20 minutes long, and it's full of dynamic stretches that are created specifically for a golfer's body. Please go to dynamicgolfers.com/golfsmarter and sign up for the 7-day free trial. And when you use the coupon code GolfSmarter at checkout, you'll receive an additional 15% off your year-long membership. So enhance your flexibility and mobility, feel confident with every full swing, and increase your energy between holes 1 through 18. That's dynamicgolfers.com/golfsmarter and use the checkout code GolfSmarter, one word, GolfSmarter, to get your 7-day free trial and 15% off the membership. dynamicgolfers.com/golfsmarter. You know, we get into this real heady stuff about the yips and everything, but I think there are so many little nuanced things, so many small details that we overlook or we've heard wives' tales about that we get wrong, that we don't know. And I'm just really excited about talking right now, just talking about teeing it up. Okay?
Right.
So let me ask you this. Difference between plastic tees and wooden tees, or okay. How about the little flat ones versus the ones that have crowns on them?
No. This falls under the category of wishful thinking, superstitious nonsense, placebo.
Don't call it nonsense. Don't call it, because I believe in the tees that I use. I saw a tee on I don't know, on Instagram or something. I went, no, that's really interesting. So I got this tee and I've been using it, and I like it, and I like the results, and I've convinced myself. So
no, but then you keep doing it. See, I'm not saying you can't use placebo effect to your advantage. Just don't, from the rational side of your personality, don't buy into a placebo. I mean, you should know it's a placebo. But from the emotional side, if you believe it's going to help you hit better shots, why wouldn't you keep using a tee? I would.
Well, that's what golf is all about. If I believe it.
Yeah. I was just talking to a new golf student literally like an hour before we started talking today about this exact same. This guy's he's a tour pro. He plays on the Challenge Tour, which is the European, like web.com or whatever they call it now, the new version of it here. And he stopped playing about 2 years ago because he had severe yips. So we're in the process of fixing his yips. And we were talking about the power of belief and how in general, how that affects behavior and consciousness. It's pretty interesting, right? I mean, if you believe something to be true, both your conscious mind, your unconscious mind, and your body will react as if it was true, even if it's demonstrably false. And it explains a lot of human history.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about the evil stuff that happens and the suffering side of human
I'm not going to get into it, but the first thing that came to my mind was January 6th.
Well, that or what Putin's doing in Ukraine, and
Yeah, I mean, don't even want to go into that.
People form beliefs that don't necessarily, that are not in alignment with the objective facts, and there's different ways you can prove what's factual.
But all right, let's get away from that and let's talk about teeing it up again. Okay, so now we know teeing it up with your driver, it's going to have to go a little higher, right?
Well, it depends on the person. Again, most of my students have it teed up too high, so I'm always trying to get them to lower it. 9 out of 10 people that I see who are amateurs who are in the mid to high handicap range, they tee it too high, not too low.
Wow. And then what about with your fairway woods or your hybrids and your irons?
If you're going to tee it up on a par 3, there's a rule for that too. So the rule is if it's anything from about a 6-iron through lob wedge, you want to tee it up so short that the bottom of the ball is slightly depressing the top 1/8 of an inch or so of the grass.
So it's kind of like you've got this nice fairway shot, right? It's just kind of floating on the grass. Yeah,
exactly. And then you want it to be a little bit higher than that when you get into the high touch higher than that, maybe like an 1/8 of an inch higher.
Okay. And this is, what about your fairway wood and your hybrids?
Yeah, a little higher. So you would have it so that with a 3 wood on a short tee, the bottom of the ball would be maybe an 1/8 of an inch above the top of the grass. Really, really close to being in contact, but not actually in contact. See, it depends on, most golfers don't, the reason why I'm saying there's different rules for this, depending on the club, is one of the big club rules, which we call them, well, there's 6 of them. There's 6 laws of club motion, which is what the club is designed to do. And one of the 6 laws is called low point / angle of attack, which means the angle that the club head approaches the ground and where it bottoms out and stops going down and starts to go up. That's called the low point. And it varies depending on what category of clubs. There's a different low point angle of attack for a 3 wood versus a hybrid versus a 8-iron, right? Versus a lob wedge versus a driver. So you have to position the ball in your stance to fit the club you have in your hand. And if you're going to use a tee, you have to understand how the tee height interacts with the low point angle of attack. So in other words, if you tee it too high with your hybrid, and let's say you have it teed up so there's a 1/4 inch of space between the bottom of the ball and the top of the grass, and you execute a perfect hybrid swing, and your ball position's where it should be, which should be about a ball or so left of center of your stance, you're going to hit that ball will be struck very, very, very high on the face, and it won't go anywhere. It'll just balloon up, and you'll hit it. It won't have any oomph behind it because the mass of the club head the energy from the club head wasn't compressing the balls as well as it could because you hit it too high in the face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it's too low, it's the same thing. So that's why you have to get the tee height to correspond to the club you're using, knowing that the angle attack and the low point is different depending on the club. I mean, the difference between, say, a 7 and 8 iron is nothing, right?
Right.
But the difference between a 7 iron and a 3 iron is huge, and the difference between even a 3 iron and a driver is huge. So the only club where the low point is behind the ball, away from the target, is driver. So basically, for driver to launch at 12 to 14 degrees, you want the low point to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches behind the ball, so it's going up just slightly when it strikes the ball. But every other shot, well, maybe except for the 3-wood, every other club, rather, you want the club going down when it strikes the ball. You can strike a 3-wood exactly at the bottom of the arc, where the low point would be the very back of the ball. It's just really hard to do that. Even tour pros struggle with hitting it that pure with a 3-wood. So most tour pros, when they're hitting a 3-wood, they will make a slightly downward blow. So they'll kind of brush the grass in front of the ball a few inches after the ball leaves, which means it's still going down a time, like maybe a degree or two, right? Yeah.
And there's so often that, again, I don't play with professionals or low handicappers. I play with average golfers, the rest of us. So often they're like, on a drive, someone will pop the ball up in the air. It'll just kind of like, they go, they throw the baseball term, can of corn, fly ball to the left, shortstop, right? Yeah. And the response to that is usually, I teed it up too high.
That's usually the case for mid to high handicaps. And so if you look down at the driver, there'll be a nice bright white paint mark on the top of your driver when that happens, because first of all, it's teed up too high and people come in too steep, meaning the low point.
Yeah, that's what I always thought, is you're coming in too steep.
Way too steep, yeah. Along with, especially if you have it teed up high, you're really going to, if you come in steep and the ball's teed up too high, that's when you really hit those pop-ups that go nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And going back to the hoverer and the solar, the solar, I'm the soul of the club, so it's not SOLAR, it's SOLER. Right. So, what about putting?
That's a great question. Nobody asked that one. Here's what it is. So you want the low point on the putt, unless you're playing extremely fast greens like 12 or higher on the stimp, or extremely slow greens like 7 or less, which we have in Hawaii in the Muni courses. It's like putting on Velcro. You want the low point to be exactly at the back of the ball, and that translates for most people, particularly if they take my advice and they putt with a little more weight on their front foot, their left foot. That means you want the ball about one ball width left of center of your stance.
Mm-hmm.
So or you could say like 2 inches. A ball's 1.68 inches diameter, so roughly 2 inches. You could say 2 inches left of the center of your sternum. That's where the ball should be.
Wow, so it shouldn't be in the center of your stance. It should be a little bit forward.
Correct.
Wow. And your weight is leaning a little bit into that side?
Yeah, most historically, I don't say everybody, there are always exceptions. Like right now, a guy who almost won last week, Matt Kuchar, he has more weight on his back foot than his front foot, but that's very rare. If you look at Tiger, he's 10% left. Jack Nicklaus, his weight is 10% left. Ben Crenshaw, Aaron Badley, Brad Faxon, what's his name? Bobby Locke, who most experts consider the greatest putter in the history of golf. He was from South Africa. He putted with a very narrow stance, but his weight was more left. Mm-hmm. And the main reason for that is you want zero body. You don't want any lateral sway when you're putting. You want to be absolutely still. Your body should not shift weight at all at any point.
And keep your head from rotating with the ball.
Oh yeah. You have to keep your head like it's in a vice all the way to the finish. You have to hold your finish for a couple of seconds and still keep your head. That's what I teach. Even then, you don't look up. Yeah.
But did you answer the question about whether it should be a hover or a sitting on the ground when you start your backstroke on your putter?
It somewhat depends on the type of putter, but for most putters don't have extremely deep or tall faces. So if you have like a normal putter, which is like 99% of the putters on the market, you don't need to hover it. You can be a solar.
Okay.
I'll tell you what I do though as a trigger, because you have to have a trigger for all golf shots, a physical trigger, not a mental trigger. So what I taught myself to do, because I saw something, I was like 11 years old. I read an article in a golf magazine in 1962, I guess. And it said, you tap the putter 4 times on the ground. So what I do is I tap, if you watch me putt, it's almost imperceptible. I tap the bottom of the putter into the ground, into the putting surface 4 times, and then I do a slight forward press with my hands. So I have a 2-step trigger. It's 4 taps and then a slight forward press. So what I'm doing is when I come up, when I hit the ground that 4th time, it's somewhat of a momentum, like a rebound, like a ball bouncing off a sidewalk. Some of it's obviously muscular, but but when I'm done, when that putter comes up on the rebound, it's maybe 1/8 of an inch off the putting surface. And so when I start my takeaway, that's where I am. I'm just barely off the ground, just a slight amount.
Wow. Hey, listen, I'm going to take another time out. We'll be back after this. See, these are basic things that we really, I used to talk about a lot in the beginning of the podcast, and then I understood those things, so I stopped talking. But there's so many little basic things, and I think now that we're at the beginning of the golf season, this is a great reminder of things that we forget about and then we don't realize. And it's like, oh, but it was working for me last season, but now it's not working for me. So there's things like this about so let me ask you this one. We'll go back to putters for a minute. And there's 1,000 different grips for putters, the way people grip the putter, and I'm not even going to go there. But a blade versus a mallet. What it seems like probably when you were starting teaching, everybody was playing a blade. But right now, it seems like there's a lot more mallets being put into use.
True. Yeah, that's definitely true. And that's because of 2 things. When Nicklaus won the Masters the last time, when it was, what was it, 86, when he was 46?
Yeah.
He had, it was either the Masters or the tournament right before that. I'm going on my bad age 70 memory here, but he had this bizarre looking, it looked like the size of like a pancake griddle. It was just huge. And I think the joke was they called it, they had some weird name for it, like the Thing or some, he was getting teased for it. He had this really gigantic, but he made everything with it. And then it kind of got popular for a while and it fell out of favor. And then when TaylorMade came up with that spider putter, like 12 years ago, roughly?
Oh my God, that's everywhere.
Because it was so perimeter weighted. When you have that big of a head, particularly like I have one, I was one of the first people I knew who bought one. And I put lead tape on the bottom, and I got heavier weights on the corners, so it's so extremely perimeter weighted. And if you hit a putter that has no perimeter weighting, and you hit it like 1/8 of an inch off the sweet spot toward the toe, when the ball leaves, the toe rotates open maybe a degree or two, so you miss the putt slightly to the right. Or if you miss it toward the heel, it rotates shut. Right? So the idea was, why not make this putter head that's more stable? It's called, in physics, it's called moment of inertia, which basically means resistance to twisting.
The old MOI.
MOI. We're talking about golf clubs, right?
Yeah.
So you want to hit the ball, you want to make contact with the putter obviously on the sweet spot, in the middle, so it doesn't twist. But if you have a extreme perimeter weighting, it either doesn't twist at all or it twists significantly less, so you still might make the putt. That's the advantage of those big heads like the Spider putters.
Yeah. Well, I have the Lab Golf DF2, which is an enormous head, but it's really stable. And the other thing that I've always liked about putters, for me, is I've never really kind of understood a heel shafted putter because I feel like there's a lot of rotation when I hit the ball on the putter. So I've always liked a center shafted putter. That's part of what I liked about the DF2.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have a heel shafted putter, and usually not always, but oftentimes they're blades, they tend to have more face rotation. Yeah. Just before, during, and after impact. So that generally means you have to have better technique to get away with it.
Mm-hmm. And what happens if you're a mid-handicap technique with a blade putter, the heel shafted blade putter? You're going to miss to the right more times or to the left?
If you didn't compensate, you would miss to the left because the toe wants to rotate to kind of catch up with where the heel is, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's why, like, if you hold that type of a putter on the tip of your finger, like a few inches away from the head, where the balance point is on the shaft, yeah, they'll hang. The toe will hang down toward the ground. Where if you take a face balanced putter, especially an extreme mallet like a Spider, it won't rotate at all. It'll be absolutely still. It'll face up toward the sky. It won't flip over.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, it doesn't make any sense if you're a mid to high handicapper to play with that type of heel shafted blade that wants to rotate.
Really?
The face angle rotate. Why would you do that? And again, less for the placebo effect. Like you try your buddies and you shoot 8 strokes better than your average scorer. Because you're making everything that day, you're going to start to form this belief that it's the putter.
And it's not.
A lot of things with placebo has to do with people don't understand one of the essential characteristics of physical reality. There's such a thing as good luck and bad luck that happen. And in other words, there's such a thing as random variation. That's when scientists do experiments, that's why they call them controlled. They're trying to eliminate outside external random variation. But in the real world that we all live in, things happen that literally don't happen for any reason whatsoever. Like you might maybe your mind-body connection was stronger that day when you made everything with your buddy's putter and not the putter. But you'll assign responsibility, causation to the new putter you're using. And that's why that type of thinking, that placebo type of thinking, generally only lasts for a week or two, because that's the normal timeline for placebo effect.
Yeah.
Or as Johnny Miller used to call he works with swing thoughts too, or he used to call them, swing keys that only work, I think it was only one day or 1 week or something. Yeah, 1 day. He calls them wood, works only 1 day, which is kind of funny, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Because like the other day I had a round, I couldn't sink a putt inside of 5 feet, but I made 4 or 5 from 15 feet to 20 feet.
Yeah.
And it was,
that's what I mean.
Yeah, and those short ones, the ones that I work on it. I had this putting green in my backyard and I work on just all day long. Those short one. My distance putting, I don't go after the hole. I go for, can I get it just past the hole? I'm just looking to work on my distance control. Yeah. On lag putting, but
you're trying. See, the difference is you're not trying to make the longer putts, and you're trying to make the short putts. And I say trying. I'm not talking about visualization. You should always visualize successful outcome.
So visualize the ball going in the hole.
Yeah, you always want to visualize the successful as a step in your routine. Every golf shot, except for maybe a tap in, gimme putt, you don't need it. But every other golf shot is a step in the routine that I teach. You always visualize success. But I also teach detaching, ultimately, ideally, all emotion. And you're trying hard emotionally to make those 3, 4, 5 footers, and you shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. You try to hit the ball well, you hit it worse.
Yeah. So what do I do then?
Well, this comes back to what I kind of like to talk about the most, which is the proper mindset for golf. I mean, what is it all about? It's interesting that Paul Azinger on Sunday, just a couple days ago at the Texas Open. There were 5 guys that were more or less tied on the back 9 for the lead. And 4 of the 5, to put it mildly, choked their guts out. And I say that with compassion, having done it myself many times. And one guy didn't. And the guy who did it is the guy who won the tournament. And Zinger was talking about this, and he said, referring to, I think his name is Spahn, I think that won it, right, Spahn?
Yeah.
He said he's clearly the only guy who's trusting his swing and is not adding emotion. All the other guys, you could tell, they really, really want to win, and they're letting emotion get the best of them. And he said all these guys practice lowering emotional intensity. It's part of how they approach the mental game. But he said sometimes you just can't do it. Sometimes the pressure gets to you and you just succumb to it, right?
Right.
Which I think that's one of the most fascinating aspects about how to improve golf performance. And as part of my Yips Cure, I teach my Yipsters how to lower and eventually eliminate emotion.
Yeah, and I've always been fascinated by a guy like Colin Morikawa. We had his coach, Rick. House, something House. And I apologize, Rick. He was when he was, working with Colin Morikawa since he was a kid, it was more situational. Right. It wasn't the mental game. It wasn't swing mechanics. It was like, okay, here's where you are right now. Wind's behind you. Give me 3 different shots to get yourself to, and it's like he would just play situationally. And it's clear when you watch Colin Morikawa, he doesn't seem to get flustered by things, but he just has different ways to approach each shot that is just a remarkable skill.
It is. And I consider it an important life skill off the golf course. It's even more important because it means you'll be a better spouse, a better parent, a better whatever your business or your profession is. You'll just be a better human being if you learn some of the skills revolved around the concept of being less emotionally reactive. Like the prisons are full of people who never learn that skill. There's even a cliche joke about it among prison psychologists. Have I ever told you this story before?
No, but why don't you wait and we'll tell me this story right after we find out what's happening on Golf Smarter Mulligans this week. We'll be right back. This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans is part 7 of our 9-week series, Spring into Golf Season with Tony Manzoni, that will run through the end of April. This episode focuses on what made Ben Hogan great is repeatable.
One thing Venturi told me when I worked with him, and it was really true, is that you can make that little lateral slide towards the target as far as you want. There is a point where your body will turn automatically. It's just that when you make the lateral slide and stop is when you hit that coil to the right. But if you make that little bump move where you transfer your weight and just keep going, you will just rotate like crazy. So it's a wonderful feeling because it's a powerful feeling. Where we get into trouble is when we have weight on the right foot as we're hitting the golf ball. Then you can't turn to the left. You just can't do it. And that's where you get lower back problems when you don't get over to the left side before your rotation. You have to get on that left side. That's why setting up 60-40, you're closer to the pivot point because we're pivoting around the left leg. The left leg is the axis for the right-handed player.
Tony's book, The Lost Fundamental, One Simple Move, Better Golf Forever, is available on Amazon, and his video can only be seen online on our private channel. If you want to see it, send me a request at golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com. For more on Tony, visit golfsmarter.com/Tony. That's Golf Smarter Mulligans, the best of the Golf Smarter archives, released every Friday. Okay, tell me. Go ahead, Jim.
The prison psychologist joke, which is, again, all about many people suffer from an emotionally reactive mind, right? And sometimes that gets them into trouble with the law and end up in prison. So the joke is it's the weekly group therapy session with 5 guys on death row for homicide. And the prison psychologist says, Joe, tell us about how you're dealing with your crime that you committed 3 years ago when you murdered 2 people in a bar fight. And Joe says, well, the funny thing about it, Doc, at the time it seemed like a really good idea. And that's a good punchline, because what it means is oftentimes people react emotionally to a situation where ideally they shouldn't react emotionally. And it's a hugely important part of a Buddhist mindfulness practice. in Buddhism, it's one of the worst things you can do is lose your temper. It's actually the worst thing you can do is to get angry and act on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the idea is it's possible to learn, and this is what I teach people how to do, to have a more calm, composed, less reactive mind. There's actual techniques and skills and exercises for how to learn how to do that.
Okay. Are there other guys that are on death row, or that's the end of it? I'm waiting to hear more punchlines here.
No, that was it. Just the idea that at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a joke, but it also happens to be true. I mean, that is what some of them say.
Yeah.
I mean, they regret it now.
Of course.
But at the time, they felt justified in shooting somebody. In other words, when you're in the grip of a powerful negative emotion, the one reason you allow yourself to react to it and act on it is because it seems like it's the right thing to do. It seems it's credible for me to be really pissed off right now. So there's a self-righteous rationalization or justification. So, just talk to any psychotherapist who deals with wife abusers. They always blame the wife. They never take responsibility. They always assume that they're justified in having that level of anger. And of course, from any rational perspective, they don't have the justification, right? They lose their temper way too easily. And it applies to golf in the sense that we're all trying, all of us who love the game, when we go to tee it up, we're hoping we're going to play good today. But what I know from my 30 plus years of teaching and then exploring consciousness research and, Buddhism and meditation and all kinds of other stuff in the 20 years prior to when I started teaching, what I know is when you add emotion of any kind, particularly negative emotion, to a difficult task that involves strong mind/brain to body connection. So when you have to have brain to body coordination and you have more than a certain amount of emotion that you're adding to the process, the performance degrades really badly. Mm-hmm. The extreme example, that's why I've kind of made this career and I worked with people with the yips. But the most extreme ultimate example of that is someone who has the yips. I mean, when someone has the yips, they walk up to this tee shot as if they fail to hit the tee shot, they're going to be executed by the golfing gods. Mm. It's like that level of emotional intensity. Mm. Terrified that they're going to screw up the shot, which, of course, if you're having that level of fear, your odds of hitting a good shot are really, really low, right?
Well, plus the fact that when you're playing a course that you play regularly, you step up to the tee going, every time I'm here, I do fill in the blank, right? And do they try a different approach ever? Yeah, no, they just keep doing it thinking, I'll get it right once. But no, you walk into it with a negative emotion.
Right. Well, the idea behind that mistake, that strategic mistake, is that people who have that issue on and off the golf course are laboring under a massive misperception, which is at the level of the psyche, the level of the mind. Past performance influences present performance. It's just not true.
Right.
Unless you believe it to be true. Back to the placebo effect. If you believe that this is your nemesis hole because the last 4 rounds you doubled the hole. People actually tell me this. Well, I doubled it 4 times in a row in the last 10 days. Of course, I'm probably going to double it again.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't. We've talked about this in other podcasts. That's what I call the myth of psychological momentum. It's not a real thing. Momentum is one of Newton's laws. I think it's his first or second law of physics. So momentum at the physical level is real. So if you step in a gopher hole when you're walking off the 3rd green, you're not going to play well the rest of the round because you've got a sprained ankle. So it's going to affect your body's ability to perform a proper swing. But the fact that you double this hole 4 times in a row has no influence on what you're about to do now psychologically, unless you believe it does. And that's why it's so important, back to our original topic, it's important to not let yourself form toxic beliefs.
Right.
Right? It's the placebo effect, by the way, is the essential mechanism underlying why and how hypnosis really does work. Hmm. One of the first things I learned when I went to hypnosis school 35 years ago was They tell you the first day when you go to class, hypnosis only works if you believe it works.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, people who believe they can't be hypnotized, they're right. They can't be hypnotized, because to be hypnotized, you have to basically give up permission. You give access to your subconscious mind to the hypnotherapist. And then if you're willing to be hypnotized, then of course it works.
Yeah.
It's the same mechanism behind placebo.
Yeah, I know that I react to people when they're like, the last 3 times I played this hole, I, again, fill in the blank. And I'm like, history has nothing to do with golf.
Of course.
It's all about what this shot is right now and not what happened in the past. And
that's right.
You're just cursing yourself if you go in that direction. Don't do that.
And again, it works off the golf course too. I mean, my practice has been since I was 10. I'm 70. I do other forms of spiritual practice, mindfulness practice, but my main one, because for me it was the easiest to understand. I just try to stay in the present moment all the time. So if I'm taking a walk down the road, which I do twice a day, and my mind starts to think about some conversation I had with my wife yesterday, as soon as I recognize I've drifted back into the past, I stop. And I focus my attention on the physical environment around me, which I call walking meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way I anchor my mind in the present is it depends what day of the week it is. So if it's Monday or Tuesday, which is when I do visual focus, I look at any physical object in my immediate environment for about 2 seconds, and only 2 seconds, and I notice the color and the shape. And then I shift my gaze to another object for 2 seconds. And I do that for like a 30-minute walk.
So wait. Now you got me going somewhere completely else. So when you start thinking about what your wife said to you the day before, and then you block it out of your mind, and then the next day she goes, "So Jim, have you been thinking about what I told you?" And you say, "Oh, no, I blocked that out of my mind." That's not going to help your marriage, Jim boy.
All I can say is, Fred, again with the comedy.
That's not funny, Jim. I know if I said that to my wife, "Oh, no, I was on the golf course doing walking meditation." No, I don't think about what you...
To take the joke even further, what my response was, this actually happened, this part of the joke. When she said that to me, I said, at the time, it seemed like a really good idea. That was my response. That's called meta-awareness. When you focus your mind in the present moment on just one thing, and you do it when you're walking, it's walking meditation using narrow focus mode in meta. And meta means the distinguishing characteristic between meta-awareness and normal awareness is normal awareness has a very vague, not clear aspect. It'd be like driving your car in the summer and it's almost Labor Day and you haven't cleaned the windshield since Memorial Day. So you keep either crashing or almost crashing because you're trying to see the road up ahead through this bug-splattered film that's covering the windshield. Normal consciousness lacks clarity. It lacks certainty. I mentioned that guy I had before you today, and that was one of the things. I gave him an exercise where I said, I'm gonna say any number between 1 and 10. When you hear me say 7, raise your finger. So we're on the webcam, me and him. This guy's actually in Texas. So I would say 10, 5. 7, and then he would raise his finger. So the point is, if you speed up how fast that happens, it's sometimes hard for people. When I say, if I'm supposed to say 7 and he's supposed to raise his finger, and I say 6, he might raise his finger because they both begin with the letter S.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But when someone's got really good meta, you can the speed of the input can get really fast. And they'll still clearly hear. They'll hear it the 7, and they'll raise their finger instantly. Yeah. So it's basically the idea that when you're really, really paying attention to something, there's a lot of certainty about your perception, and there's a lot of clarity. And when you're only paying attention with say 50% of your mind, and the other 50% of mind is wandering around at random, what you're perceiving in the 50% where you're trying to focus is not going to be as clear. So when you do walking meditation, every 2 seconds you're looking at something different. it's pretty cool because by the end of the walk, what almost everybody reports is they feel better. They feel calmer, happier, more focused, more relaxed, more energy after the walk than before because they've been concentrating for 30 minutes. Same with sitting meditation. It's a little different technique, but it's the same idea. Yeah.
So recently, Jim, I've been doing a bunch of episodes that seem to be based in Golf in the Kingdom. And I'm reading it right now because I'm reading 4 books at once. But I'm reading Golf in the Kingdom, and it's only the second book in my life that I've ever read a second time. The other one was Catcher in the Rye as a teenager. But I don't think we've ever discussed that book. Are you a Golf in the Kingdom fan, a Chivas Iron Society guy? Or?
I used to be a member of the Chivas Iron Society. I read the book when it first came out. I had a conversation with the author by phone back not that long after the book came out.
Michael. I've had him on the show multiple times.
Okay, yeah. And he founded Esalen. I've been to Esalen about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times.
Yep.
Where I practiced, early Buddhist practice was, there was a monastery called Tassajara, which is about 30 minutes down the road from Esalen.
Right.
And there was a kind of a back and forth between the 2 centers. But yeah, Michael Burphy's a cool guy.
Yep.
Great book. One of my favorite golf books, for sure.
Is it?
Yeah.
Impactful for you?
Yeah, because it just took some of the stuff I'd already been playing around with on the Buddhist side, and it was basically that type of philosophy applied to the game of golf, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I think it's an important book too, and I think that everybody should read it. And there's a lot of people who are not into the mental, the metaphysical, that part of golf. But boy, it changes your game, and if you take it seriously, it's impactful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, once again, we went 16 different directions and still didn't talk about the yips. But boy, it was fun talking to you again, Jim.
Well, we got a little bit in there.
A little bit. We'll always get a little bit.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of demand. I'm getting pretty much every day. I talk to at least one new person who's struggling with yips, and it's been a fun couple of years. It's I'm the busiest I've ever been in spite of the pandemic. It's been insane.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that happened with the pandemic with golf. It really took off, but it seems to be slowing down a little bit. And well, definitely because a lot of those new golfers are slow players.
I know. We should do it.
Painful.
We should turn everybody into Matt. You ever seen Matt Jones's pre-shot routine? Well, especially the latter part of it.
No.
He walks up. He takes a setup, which takes less than a second. He looks at the target for about a quarter of a second, and then he starts his takeaway. So It's like he's the fastest professional in the world.
But does he take practice swings at all?
I don't think so. He doesn't take a practice swing next to the ball, for sure. He might take like a half swing from behind the ball before he walks in to address it. But it's his overall routine is fast, but especially that last part, which we call the swing trigger ritual, it's really quick. That's actually a good way to play. I mean, I recommend people try it because you may not get good results right away with it because you might feel too rushed.
Right.
After you get used to it, you'd be amazed how well you can hit it. You probably done. Yeah, actually, you did a podcast like 10 years ago with my buddy Chris Smith, who used to teach at Quail Valley.
Oh yeah, and I think I did one with him last year as well. I brought him back.
So he's the guy that started speed golf.
Speed golf, yeah.
Yeah, Chris is just like Matt Jones.
Shot like a 69 in 38 minutes or something ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I was at the Fred Meyer Challenge 25 years ago at the Reserve Golf Club just outside of Portland, and it was Nicklaus and Palmer and all these other tour pros there with Peter. It's Peter Jacobs's private tournament. They don't do it anymore, but they did it for like 20 years. And they started out the clinic, which was on the 18th green, with Nicklaus and Palmer mainly talking to the audience, with Chris and his buddy was driving the cart. And so the buddy would drive ahead and figure out the yardage, and then Chris would run between shots. So he would just get handed a club and say, hit it there. Yeah, and I think they finished the round before the clinic was over. They finished the round in like 42 minutes.
Yeah.
And he shot 67. And so they interviewed him at the start, and you know, Nicklaus and Palmer were kind of laughing. I didn't even know it was a thing. They thought it was almost like a joke. And then he comes 44 minutes later, he comes around and he putts out on 18. And Palmer says, "What'd you shoot?" And Chris says 67. And Palmer was stunned. And he asked the caddy, "Was it true?" And the caddy says, "Yeah." He said, "That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire career in golf."
Wow.
He shot 5 under in 44 minutes. And not a hard, not an easy golf course. I used to have the 5th senior major there, the countrywide tradition back in the day.
Amazing.
So he played for the Blue Tees too, and it wasn't from the Whites or from the ladies team.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So you can learn a lot from that mentality where you have to react to what you're trying to do. In the general term, it's called react to the target, like in other sports.
It's like basketball.
Yeah. You see it, and you shoot. You see it, and you shoot.
Right.
Golf can actually be like that, and it's a lot more fun when you play like that than when you play the game.
Got to get used to it. All right, Jim. Great talking to you again. It's always entertaining. We always get something out of this that I go, oh my goodness, and you did it to me again. Thanks so much, bud. Great talking to you.
See you soon. Bye, Fred.
Well, congratulations go out to Scotty Scheffler for winning this year's Masters. I'm just curious, how did you feel about his 4-putt on the final hole? He was clearly distracted by the result and not focused on the process. And of course, it didn't jeopardize the results for him, but for me, I was in a pool that had me climbing up the leaderboard every day, which was pretty exciting. So as Scheffler walked up to the 18th green on Sunday, I was in 6th place. But after the 4-putt, I ended up in 14th. Now, you may remember last year when I talked about the pool that my son organized. Same pool this year. Scheffler was one of my picks, but my real goal this year was to beat my son, which I did, soundly. Last year, he won it all, and I came in dead last. So even though I wasn't in the money, I did accomplish my goal. Now, as for Scotty's 4-putt, on the one hand, it's painful to watch, but on the other, it's also a great reminder that it happens to the very best in the world. So next time you miss a short putt that's just outside of your group's gimme range, which clearly moves from round to round, just remember that it happens to the best too. My final thought is this. If you had said to me, "I bet you the Tiger makes the cut and Koepka doesn't," I would have said, "You're on." Do you think Brooks might have made the cut if Bryson was in the group just to piss him off? Who knows? Hey, I've only got 3 more free memberships to Dynamic Golfers available to give away, and it's yours if you want it. First come, first served. The first 3 Golf Smarter listeners who send me an email requesting Dynamic Golfers year-long membership are winners. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions for upcoming episodes, or you'd like to be one of the 3 to get a year-long membership for free to Dynamic Golfers, please click on the Hey Fred button at golfsmarter.com.